Hello, 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 ladies. This podcast is designed exclusively for you. This is Her Talk Show, where we dive into inspiring thoughts, ideas, and stories, all with one purpose: to empower and uplift women like you. I am Sabrina Victoria, your host and guide on this journey of self-discovery and growth. I invite you to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. Together, we are creating a vibrant community of empowered women. Get ready to unleash your brilliance. Her Talk Show starts now.
We come to you every day with the best speakers, relationship coaches, spiritual mentors, trailblazers, business owners, authors, young hustlers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, fitness trainers, therapists, financial advisors, and more. We ask our guests one question: what do you know that I don't know? Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Today for this episode of Her Talk Show, we have had over 500 women grace this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so we can send you some love in the comments. Either way, if you are watching us, please share this video so we can get more eyes and more ears on the amazing content we are sharing today. Today, we are talking to an amazing woman. Ebony J, TheTrap Therapist Hall, is a published author and a master level licensed independent social worker in Ohio and Georgia. United States Navy veteran. Ebony J is the founder and managing director of the nonprofit Enduring the Course Incorporated, where the mission is to increase understanding, reduce stigma, and expand intervention options for people experiencing mental health concerns. Super excited to have this lady on stage today. Welcome, Ebony.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I so appreciate you coming in and joining us and spending some time with us and sharing some value, right? There's things that you know that I don't know, and there's things that I know that you don't know. And the only way for both of us to really jive and be good humans is for us to learn from each other. So I'm really excited about this topic. When I saw the title of this, I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So sometimes it's you. Yes. What does that mean? Tell me what that means.
So often we are quick to blame other people or to say, I did this because you did that, or that happened to me, so this is why I did that. And the whole premise behind it is sometimes you have to take accountability, be aware of your actions, be aware of your faults, your mistakes, and fix it and not blame others. So looking at yourself is always going to be first and foremost.
Yes. So when did you come to this realization? Because there are so many people living with this mindset.
So I came to the realization as when we're in school to become, therapists or whatever the degree that you end up with. My degree is actually in social work. So it's a little weird sometimes when people think that like social workers can't be therapists or whatever. But anyway, part of the program was always that you have to look at your own biases. You have to look at yourself. And a lot of the things we had to practice ourselves. So just looking at just my different history, different things that I have experienced, I started looking like, and then there's sometimes certain conversations or certain things that's like, well, dang, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm the one that made that happen versus it being somebody else or some type of outside factor.
Yeah, definitely. What's the power behind that? Because a lot of times people will sit here and they'll be like, but it is their fault. It is all their fault.
The power behind that is just being self-aware, and you can determine and control your life and control your narrative and control how you move around the world. When you blame other people or other things, then that allows them to have power and control over you, your life, and your decisions. When you can say like, oh, dang, I did that, then that takes back your power. Then not only does it take back your power in that capacity, you can just move different. Like you can make different choices. So that's where the power lies, in that awareness, in that self-awareness.
Self-awareness. I totally agree. I remember just even with my own story, once I really started to take the power of my story and have ownership over it, then I was really able to create a solution for it.
Absolutely. And it's so much freedom in that. People don't understand that when you are not creating your own story, it's you just can be in so much bondage in that, because now you're whatever that is. If you have an addiction, now you're a drug addict. Or if you have if you've been abused, and it's like you're, even if it's saying a survivor, but it's like, no, that's what happened to me, that's not me.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate this story to even just my single mom story. My son's father and all the drama with that, and all of the blame that I would put on that situation, as far as, my life would be different. Things would be different. Financially, I would be different if he was showing up more as a father. This was years and years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But, really, when I started honing in on where is my power, where do I have a say? What can I do? Instead of just putting all my focus on, he should be doing this, he should be doing that, he's messing up, instead putting all the power and mindfulness into what can I do, then all of a sudden my life started to turn around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
I have a story.
Yeah.
I have a story where it relates to my life too, as well. So I am actually a divorcee twice. And so I used to be very, very embarrassed about saying that. I'm still, fairly young. I just turned 42 Juneteenth, so a fresh 42. But I've been divorced twice, and it used to be embarrassing because it's like, well, my first ex-husband, he's only been divorced once. My second ex-husband, he's only been divorced once. I'm the only one who's been divorced twice. And so a lot of times people will think like, well, then I had to have done something. And so where I started taking that power about back is like when people ask me, why am I divorced, or what do I think happened with the marriage, instead of blaming them, because there was some, infidelities and some financial stuff and, just different things. But the fact of the matter is, out of the three of us, none of us was equipped to have a healthy marriage. None of us really knew what we were doing. We, loved each other. We had good, chemistry and different things like that, but we didn't have the tools. So once I learned that and realized that again, yes, they did some things to me, but I also have to take accountability knowing that I did some things. And also because I wasn't equipped, I moved a certain way that didn't allow them to be the men that they were trying to be or needed to be. And so for that, I don't, happily say that I'm divorced, but the fact is, that's what it is. And I'm going to get married again because I have a whole bunch of, tools now that I know how to have a successful relationship, a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. It takes time.
Absolutely.
It takes time. I know you talk a lot about therapy and how it can be used not only to be proactive, but to also be preventative. What is your thought on that? Let's talk on that.
So it's really, excuse me, it's really, really important for that conversation to be circulated, in my opinion, because most people think that you go to therapy when your world is turned upside down, when like that's the last resort. I specialize in healthy relationships as one of my niches, and people typically come when that's it. Like, this is my last ditch effort. If this doesn't work, then this relationship is over. But factually, if you come beforehand, that's why they have things like premarital counseling. If you come as soon as you are aware that there's something that's not working well, then that could prevent a lot of things. That could prevent a lot of just heartache and trouble for you. So coming to learn tools before anything is happening or before it's completely your world's completely turned upside down is a lot better. And to be honest, most therapists, I think I can speak for them, we like it then because if you're in that place, then typically you're ready to work. If you're at your wits end, it's a lot harder. Of course, you can still, be successful and have a successful session with us or time period with us, but we got to work harder because now you got to peel back so many layers and different things like that. But if you are coming before it's like that, the person is typically ready.
Wow. This is so interesting that you're saying this because when I asked the question, I was like, obviously. But then as you're explaining this, I realized I would never think to go to a therapist preventatively. I would always think to go to a therapist only when there was issues.
Right.
But it's better to do it the opposite.
Absolutely. Another niche of mine. So I specialize in healthy relationships, grief, and parenting. Those are my particular specialties. And so I do a lot of things around parenting. And for me, so I have a 20-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 9-year-old. My 20-year-old is a girl. My 15-year-old is a boy, and my 9-year-old is a girl. And so even though I have, 2 girls, so I've already had 2 9-year-olds before. The world is just completely different from when my 20-year-old was 9, even to when my 15-year-old was 9, and now with my 9-year-old being 9. So there are things that I need to always be educating myself on, brushing up on, and making sure that I'm not trying to, put things on them that doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you a quick example of that. I've had a lot of parents or a lot of people, just in general conversation, not in work life necessarily, talk about like, well, I don't understand why kids aren't learning cursive, or I don't understand why they're not learning the analog clock. And so I have broke it down to them, like, why? How many times do you see an analog clock in the world nowadays? Everything is typically digital. So why would we teach them something that's not useful to them? Yes, it was useful to us. It made sense to us because we had those clocks, but we don't have those. We talk about cursive. Most schools teach kids just the basics of signing or, their name, because the only time that you really would utilize it for the most part nowadays is signing your name. Everything else we do it digitally. So when I say that, then people are like, oh, I never even thought about that. So at capacity is one of my things when I talk about preventative type of things, like just knowing the world is different. There's so many different things. There's so many different ways, but we all in the world together. And the things that we have learned are not that they're not useful anymore, but we have to learn other ones and teach other ones and let our kids be our kids, be themselves in that area too.
Yeah, for sure. So grief, relationships, and parenting, is that what you said?
Yes.
Got it. What sort of grief?
So I do any type of grief, to be honest. People don't understand, but there are over 40 emotions that can be related to grief. Of course, when you hear grief, you typically jump to death or divorce. But if we think about it, or the way that I break it down, we all just have been dealing with, this pandemic type of thing. And in the pandemic, there are so many things that we lost. We lost the way that we do things drastically. We lost the way that we communicate and interact with each other. There are people who have not been back to work in a physical office or in a physical public because they don't have to. We learned that we didn't have to do it that way. But sometimes you have to grieve even that, the way that life changes for you. And people don't think about that. People don't think about sometimes when you move from a neighborhood, especially for a child, it's a little bit different typically for the adults because they have had time to prepare for that. They already know typically beforehand where they're going to move to, what's that going to look like, and all of those things. And a lot of times as parents, we don't have those conversations with our kids, not in advance, not giving them enough time to process that. So grief is anything that affects you emotionally. And people, so again, people just only think that it is those things that are naturally normal to us.
So 40 emotions linked to grief. Is that what you said?
Absolutely.
Wow. What are
Yep.
like 4 that I would know?
Again, just if you just think about the loss of something, like
Okay.
that's just kind of very general, the loss of something, you have to grieve that thing. And like I said, it can be just the simplest that I can think of is a move. Most people think they get excited about a move a lot of times, or
Okay.
they, like I said, they're prepared for that. But there's a lot of things that come with that. I recently moved from my office just up to just 2 floors up, 3 floors up, and I was so emotional that day. And I was talking, to the maintenance people, and they was just like, well, what's going on with you? Why are you? And for me, this was I started in that place working for one of my colleagues, seeing clients there, and then she moved, and so I took that space, and I had that space for just shy of 2 years, and then now I'm moving up. So yes, it's exciting to move up to a bigger space. It's more functional. We can do more things and all of this. But for me, it was like we painted these walls, and it was just like almost like my baby. You know what I'm saying? It was just like something totally. It was the first time I've had a business and all of these things. So a lot of emotions were stirred up in that, and so I had to grieve that thing. The kind of difference is typically when you lose like a loved one or something like that, that can be a long period of it versus me. It was just kind of, a couple of hours, and by the end of the day, I was fine because I'm happy, putting everything together, and that shows growth and, financial increase and blah blah blah. But people don't even relate it, those type of things to that. Like grief can touch your emotions in so many different ways. Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. And I had never really even thought of that before. And now that I'm sitting here, yes, there are so many different types of griefs. Times when you feel sad for loss. So it's always with something that you've lost.
Yeah, it's always with something that has an emotional loss. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that you actually lost something. Let's just say you are an amputee. So you all your life you've had, all of your limbs, and then something happens and you end up being an amputee. So now you still have your physical body and you can still do stuff. You're still in your right mind. And so there's still activities and stuff that you can do, but you cannot do it in the same capacity.
Got it.
So anything that changes your life can be considered something that you would grieve.
Got it. Totally makes sense. Yes. Tell us about Soft Girl Summer.
So, we have all of these, especially in the Black community, the brown community, but I think as for women, period, we had an era where we had like the women's rights or the women like independence and all of these type of things, which is fine. I'm not, saying anything negative about that. But what happened for a lot of us is that when that happened, we became very independent, very on our own, but a mindset shift happened as well. And with that mindset shift, it made us not always view men in a certain way. It was kind of like, oh, I don't need a man type of thing. I can do this on my own. And that creates that throws the natural, I guess, response or relationships off. And so now it's like, listen, and so we had it, even in the 90s, we had an era where girls dressed kind of like boys. And it wasn't because of their sexuality or anything. That's just what was acceptable. And now we have this period where we is that too loud?
No. It's
Okay.
fine.
We had this period where we don't want to be treated like that anymore. So we a lot of times you'll hear people saying stuff like, oh, chivalry is dead. And it's like, No, it's kind of not. It's because we changed how we do things. So we'll hurry up, like we'll pick guys up for dates, and we'll, pay for dates and do all of these type of things. When a lot of us is like, no, I don't want that. I want to go back to where I can be dainty and I can be feminine and I can be, kind of catered to in a way in those type of roles, and that makes me be able to be more soft, more feminine, more delicate. Hi, Linda.
So that's a good thing.
Yes.
It's a good thing. Soft
Yes.
girl summer.
Yes. And some people don't, because being soft can be equated to being weak. But in fact, the narrative that we want to push with that is being vulnerable, being vulnerable, being, again, feminine, expressing your femininity in the way that you feel comfortable, in a way that doesn't make you feel, so aggressive or so hard, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I agree with you. And I've never thought of that. So yeah. Is that what it's really called? Soft girl summer?
I don't know. I know that people
is that a thing going around right now? Like that's a thing?
People have been talking about soft girl and different things like that. So I think I kind of put it together. Summertime was coming around, and so I think I kind of put it together. But it is a thing where they are talking about soft girls being softer.
Very cool. Okay. You had mentioned, we had talked a little bit about grief and that there's 40 different, emotions around that.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is. I want to talk a little bit about healing from that.
Yes.
And how healing can take way longer than it's supposed to if we're not dealing with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
So I am actually a grief recovery specialist, where I went through the Grief Recovery Institute, and they have a unique type of way of helping people through the grief process, and I like it. So in my as I was going through school, of course we were taught how to address grief and different things like that. But the Grief Institute, Recovery Institute, encompass. So most of the time when somebody, so I ask you, Sabrina, when you find out somebody loses a loved one, what's the first thing that comes to your mind to say to them?
Sorry.
And what does the person say back to you?
That's okay.
Right. But is it really okay?
No.
It's really not okay. And are you really sorry? Of course you don't want people to lose people, but are you really sorry? But you don't have any other words to say, right?
Yeah.
So we just say this uncomfortable, we have this uncomfortable exchange, sorry, thank you, or okay, those type of things, where if you actually sit and be able to express it or be okay. So if I'm crying, if I lost my loved one and I come to you and I'm just like, oh, Sabrina, it's okay to just sit there and say, wow, or say nothing, or, and that could be awkward too, because we're not used to that, but it actually allows me to, because the moment that you say sorry while I'm talking or while I'm, it just kind of shuts it down. When you say sorry, it stops it right there. Like, all right, that's the end of that conversation type of thing, or the end of that sentence. When in fact, maybe I still need to talk about it. I need to, I don't want to say it's okay, because it's not, because I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm, upset, I'm angry, those different type of things. And typically they talk about the healing phase. Hold on, I might have to go to a different place. Sorry.
We're getting all up on your business. That happens all the time with me. Like right when I'm about to start my podcast, the guy starts to mold the bushes right by the window.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so just being the way that they do it is it allows you to in a safe space get it out and not have that fear of you making people uncomfortable. Again, a lot of times when someone passed, you don't want to, let's just say you and I were sisters and our dad passed. If I'm having a bad day, I'm typically not going to call you because I don't want you to make you sad. So I'll have to hold on to it or, different things like that. And so, but if you deal with it in a safe space where somebody can, where we do have the language, where we do I guess understand, at least we understand the process of grief. Not necessarily we understand, excuse me, what is happening to you or what you're feeling, but we understand that process. And so we can have different languages. We can, just kind of support you through it a lot more than you just getting it's okay or suck it up or sometimes if you lose a kid and you have other kids or you're young or something, they'll be like, oh, well, you can have another one or God will, do this or, stuff like that. And it's like, but this is my kid that I lost right here. I don't care if I have 10 kids, nobody or nothing can replace that kid. So just being in a space that gives you the correct language and allows you to express whatever it is you're feeling. Sometimes people get mad because the person died, and you're angry at them for leaving you. But it's how often do you really hear people say that and be supported in that? So,
Yeah. So I want to ask, with all the things that we've covered so far, which is great material here, we have quite a few people listening live. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with us. I want to ask, what specifically do you do? Anyone who's hanging on and they're resonating with all the goodness that you're sharing, they're obviously interested in you, your story, and what you're speaking about. Who should be reaching out to you? Who do you help? What exactly do you do?
I help everybody that has an issue with grief, relationships, and parenting. I don't have like a specific like gender, or I don't necessarily focus on kids or adults. I intentionally use healthy relationships because we are constantly in relationships. So I'm not talking about just intimate relationships. I do couples therapy. But what about when you have sometimes the relationship is between you and your boss and you need your job or you want your job, you like your job, but how do you communicate that you're uncomfortable or you don't like what's going on? So when I talk about healthy relationships, it's any type of relationship that you can be intertwined in. So I don't have, like I said, a specific audience in that capacity. My biggest thing, like if I had to have like a takeaway saying or I guess like a legacy, I just want people to know that they don't have to suffer in silence. They don't have to suffer alone, and that it is, solutions to whatever you're dealing with. Even if that just means we're teaching you how to cope through it positively. And so just bringing awareness is anybody who's looking for that is I'm your girl.
Beautiful. When you were saying having trouble communicating because it's uncomfortable, what would be a couple of steps that somebody could take towards having healthy communication skills? So I think sometimes people who are really entrenched in a relationship, whether it's parents or whether it's partner, and they haven't really seen a healthy relationship, it's hard to describe, it's hard for them to recognize what a healthy relationship looks like. Like, what is healthy communication? Can you give us a couple examples of healthy communication?
I think one of the things that I learned specific personally is that I've always tried to be honest. But in that, I will be, I guess, brutally honest. And the problem with that is just because I literally used to think that because it's true, you shouldn't be upset about it. And that's not true.
Ooh,
That is
okay.
absolutely not true. If you're calling me out, who likes to be called out, and not even in a way where you're like aggressive or dogging me, but if you telling me that I'm doing something wrong or I'm doing something that hurts you, it doesn't always feel good. So
Yeah.
sometimes when somebody's doing that, we quick to be defensive and different things like that. So, but first off, knowing that just because it's the truth doesn't mean, you know how people say like, not to be offensive. And then typically 9.5 out of 10, what they say is going to be offensive. And so like if you have to say things like that, then that's not healthy communication. There's a way to say everything. You can always express yourself in a way that's not offensive to the person. Now, on the flip side to that is you can say it. I've had conversations where I can say the exact same thing in the exact same cadence in the exact same way to two different people. And depending on where that person is how they're going to receive it. So if you're in a good space, if we're in a good space, if you trust me, if you recognize that what I'm talking about or the information I'm giving you is beneficial to you, is helpful to you, then your feelings might be hurt, but you're going to receive it well. If we don't have that trust, if we don't have that, if we've been fighting all day and then I want to come to you nice and tell you something, you're not going to receive it the same. And that makes it unhealthy at that point. So knowing when to say things, knowing how to say things, and then just making sure that you are truthful and honest. And then from a intervention that I will use for people on a regular basis is using safe words. So letting people know because sometimes we can have something going on and it's not even about that person that we're talking to, but it may be perceived that way, or we might deliver it that way. So when you have safe words, one of my safe words, especially like when in my last relationship, when I was dating someone, I would say, can you hold my hand, or I need my hand held, or something like that. And so he automatically knew that whatever was about to come now or next wasn't necessarily about him. It was about what I was feeling in that moment. And that was very helpful to us.
Wow.
And so, and by me putting it out there before we had the conversation, he could then tell me, if he had the capacity for it. Because that's another thing. Sometimes we don't have the capacity for it. So I like to call before I start talking to my friends. When I know I got some stuff going on, I will ask, do they have the capacity for it? I'll ask, how are they? I'll ask what they are. And if I call you and I say, oh, Sabrina, how you doing? And you like, girl, my life is just, me and my man got into it or whatever, then I already know they don't have the capacity for my stuff. And I'll, wait another time. So just make all of those things allow for healthy communication.
Absolutely fantastic. Those were great. I loved those. And I agree with all of them. And I love this hand holding thing. I could totally see how that would shift the vibrations of the room with you low key and saying, hey, we're about to talk about something here that's real.
Yeah.
And instead of going through that whole long thing, just using that simple statement because you agreed on it and he knows. Super, super powerful and great examples. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people don't know.
Right. And this is all the type of stuff that we could talk about in therapy. It's not just, you land on a couch. Up until about a year ago, and I've been doing therapy for about 10 years now, but up until about a year ago, whenever I say I'm a therapist, people either first think I'm a physical therapist, or second, they be like, oh, the kind where like you have a couch, people come lay on your couch. And I used to always say, well, I do have a couch, but nobody lays on it. But I had this young lady who laid on my couch one day, and so I don't really say it that much. But typically people don't come in there and lay on the couch. It's not like what you see on TV. It's not a lot of like, well, how does that make you feel? Because most of the time when you're expressing it to me, I know how that makes you feel. What I typically would do in those cases is ask, how is that working for you? does that make sense to you? Does that, how did that help you type of thing? And people receive that a lot more than how does it make me feel? And sometimes you don't know how it make you feel. Or sometimes we confuse our feelings. So you might be saying I was angry, but in fact you were scared. So the person might not have the language, but if you come here, we can teach you that language and we can break that down to you and we can point out, some different things. I like to say that I offer people, because listen, I didn't make this stuff up. This is stuff that I've been taught that, comes from framework and theories and different things that has been researched for years and years and years. But I know how to teach people how to apply it. And and we can make shifts based on the person's environment, their experiences, their thought process. Again, I can have 2 clients with similar situations, but I won't approach it the same way because of, whatever they're dealing with versus what the other person is. So being able to come there, and I like to tell people too that it's an hour. We don't typically have this anytime in our life, but it's a whole hour, 50 minutes to an hour where you can talk about yourself and not feel judged and not feel like you're being conceited or anything like that. And we could just focus on you. In a busy day, out of 24 hours, how many times do you really get an hour to yourself?
Yeah.
You typically don't. So
yeah, definitely. Thank you for all of that. Fantastic. For those that would like to follow you, check you out, where can they find you on social media and what is your website?
You can find me on Instagram, either Ebony J, that's EBONY _JAE, or on my business page is _ ETC INC.
Okay, hang on. So it's Ebony.
Mm-hmm.
What's your Instagram? Ebony what?
Ebony J. Ebony _ JAE.
JAE.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
All right. So Instagram, Ebony _ JAEJ. If you want to find her on Instagram, and then your website for the audio.
It is Enduring the Course Inc. Or you can actually put in ETC INC.org.
Oh wow, it's for both. You have both.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fantastic. That's great. I love that. Where should they go when they go to the website? Do you have a
you can it's a I guess where you could like put request information and it'll send you to the email.
Beautiful.
And it'll get you connected.
Beautiful. This has been absolutely phenomenal. So appreciate you. For those watching live, thank you for being here. If you resonated with Ebony and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you find her at enduringthecourseinc.org or ETC INC.org. Very good. Her Instagram is Ebony _ JAE. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure we continue to rise. Any closing thoughts, Ebony, as we wrap up?
Yes. I would just say you can't heal what you don't deal with. So if you want to get through it, you got to deal with it. Yeah. And it hurts, but it's temporary.
Yes, it is temporary. It is temporary. I think people don't necessarily recognize that or know that. So thank you for bringing that up. Well, this has been phenomenal. I love the value. I love the step-by-steps. I loved the examples, the visuals that you gave to us. Fantastic. I certainly hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you for being here. For those watching live, this brings us to an end of another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our amazing guest speaker, Ebony J, for sharing her wisdom and inspiring us all. To each and every one of you, our dedicated listeners, thank you for staying with us into the very end. Your support and engagement means the world to us. Remember to follow, like, and share this podcast. Join me again for our next episode with more captivating stories, enlightening thoughts, and empowered ideas. Once again, I'm your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to have these conversations. Until next time.